Production of Kansas City Week in Review is made possible through the generous support of Dave and Jamie Cummings, Smithfield Foods, Haas and Wilkerson Insurance, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Coming up, a kick in the pants for one of Kansas City's most vexing problems, an absence of development east of Troost. But the civic leaders now have the answer. You can't separate that lack of economic activity on the east side from concern over crime. This week, more tragedy there as two young boys are shot to death. A new school year begins all over the metro. We look at the challenges facing schools. And update Schlitterbahn, new developments and repercussions over a local tragedy continuing to make national news. Hello, I'm Nick Haynes, and thanks for joining us again. Dissecting the news this week from the Kansas City Star, Steve Vockrodt, the senior writer for the Call newspaper, Eric Wesson, Star reporter, columnist and blogger Dave Helling, and because two Davids are better than one, David Martin, reporter at The Pitch. I should point out before we start, we normally tape this program on a Friday morning. This week we are recording earlier in the week, and that's important for you to know because news does change, so be aware of that. But KCPT is the media partner in the sellout TEDx event going down Friday at the Kauffman Center. The same KCPT TV crew who produces this show is going to be filming that, so we've been thrust into a different recording schedule. But some news simply never changes. One is that vexing issue of why it is that no one seems to be willing to invest and develop east of Troost. It's an issue we picked up in the KCPT documentary earlier this year called Our Divided City.
Like many cities in the US, Kansas City has two stories to tell.
We want the same chance. We want the same opportunities for a job.
There's the story about the gleaming, pretty neighborhoods.
When you talk to people in Kansas City, you hear a lot about the Troost divide.
A land of opportunity that's mostly white. And then there's the story about the east side of town, home to the black community.
Well, there's not a whole lot of people living around here, so many empty houses.
Now, after years of hand-wringing over the issue, is Kansas City finally putting some muscle behind a solution? This week, a new group of civic leaders says they're working to finally jumpstart the east side and are raising $50 million in private equity to target three long-neglected areas of the city. They call themselves the KC Catalytic Urban Redevelopment Initiative. What are they planning and who's involved, Steve?
Well, it's one of many efforts over the years to try and jumpstart development on the east side. This isn't new, obviously. This initiative is new, but the idea is not. And the efforts to develop East Side seem to take a one step forward, two steps back over the years. If they can raise this private equity and they can use it in the right way, it could be very meaningful. The difficulty that the East Side has always had is finding developers who are willing to take a chance. There are tools for developers that are willing to take a chance. They're called economic development incentives, but they're so frequently used in places that are fairly well established that there's a school of thought at City Hall that there isn't enough incentive then to use them east of Troost and places like that.
Now, one difference here, though, according to those behind this, Eric, is that rather than just have this everywhere around the in a city, is to actually really target the investment into three areas: 31st and Troost, 31st and Prospect, and the Ivanhoe neighborhood. But targeting money, hasn't that happened before too? We had the Green Impact Zone that was targeting huge amounts of money in one very narrow area of the city, and that didn't meet expectations.
And it won't with this either. It sounds good. It might look great on paper and it's a great concept, but when the rubber meets the road, when you get into these projects, even developing those projects, you run into so many obstacles. Land acquisition, who owns the property, most of the time it's people from out of state, so you have to track down who owns it so that you can develop it. And it's always an obstacle in the urban core, and that's one of the reasons why developers don't want to come in, because they don't want all those added headaches and trying to figure out what the community wants. Because in the black community, there's one thing that always perturbs me, and that is when somebody has an idea, and it goes back to the baseball park that they're building down on Truman Road, the first thing out of most people in the black community's mouth is, "You didn't talk to us, we don't want it." So it's a very difficult task to figure out what to do in the urban core.
But this is an effort to try and make a difference, Dave. How do you see this?
Well, as Steve and Eric point out, this is not a new concept to try and concentrate more private dollars on the east side. And in addition to the problems that Eric points out, there is another problem, and that is that you need a certain amount of economic strength within the community itself so that you can sell things if you decide to build a store, or that you can have doctor's appointments if you build a doctor's office. And so it's a more fundamental problem of strengthening the income stream within the East Side community that you sort of have to take a look at first before you just say, okay, let's put in another grocery store or another office building or another used car lot or whatever it is that you're trying to incent on the East Side. And that nut has not been cracked in Kansas City and in most urban areas. You need to get income. You need to have good jobs, good paying jobs, good infrastructure, nice homes before you can really
school district.
Schools that work, before you can put 50 million or 100 million or 150 million into a neighborhood and expect it to provide the oomph that you want it.
David.
And to Dave's point, I mean, and you look at the areas, parts of the city that are aging a little bit that have done well, like the Ward Parkway Shopping Center, that continues to receive investment and does well. And I think a big part of that is that it's surrounded by so much wealth in the Waldo area and Prairie Village. Developers want to be around that wealth that Dave talks about. The East Side, it's a little harder.
That's why the Citadel, for example, which was the classic example of an incented project, it was going to do all these great things over on 63rd Street, never got going because there's just not enough economic uplift in the neighborhood to justify those kind of investments. The Glover Plan development at Linwood and Maine, the Costco and the Home Depot, is a classic example of, it took years and years to put that together, and then they incented it in a way to grow the neighborhood that would provide the base to make those businesses work.
Remember all those stories that Hollywood film actor Brad Pitt was coming to town and through the Make It Right Foundation going to transform some of the most impoverished tracts of Kansas City with new affordable housing? Brad Pitt's Make It Right Foundation announced plans to build up to 50 houses in the Manheim Park neighborhood around 43rd and Tracy Avenue. But are those promises now being broken? Despite the fanfare, no one is now returning calls. Make It Right officials involved with the project have left the foundation. Steve Vockrodt, you've been digging into the story, so there's no visible evidence of any work if you were to go to that site today?
That's right. So Make It Right has purchased 6 parcels over there at 4300 block of Tracy, but they haven't done any work. They were supposed to have started work last May. When I first started into the story, I thought it was going to be a pretty basic call the foundation, see what their plans are, and just provide an update. They canceled an interview. They never followed up, despite several requests to get in touch with them. That made me wonder, how did they perform in New Orleans? Talked to some folks down there who said, yeah, they did build some houses in the lower 9th Ward, which was one of the most affected areas after Hurricane Katrina, and really the reason that Brad Pitt started this foundation. But they ran into problems there too. They spent too much money on some of the houses that they built. Some of the materials that they used weren't working. So they had issues there, and through another person, we understand that they're taking a step back on Kansas City and reassessing what they're going to do, and they haven't communicated those plans publicly to the media or really anyone else.
When there's concern that you can't get enough development on the east of Troost, what does this say then about these promises being made now to make a difference, Eric?
Well, it says a lot about what the ultimate goal is and the plan and the development stages of the plan. And we have situations like that. Blue Hills, for example, they were building some houses, the pre-development, and the developer and the contractor got to building the houses, ran into some rock under there, didn't have it in the budget. Now the houses are overpriced and they're overinvestment and they're subject to being foreclosed on now. But those are the kind of things that you run into when you're dealing with property and land in the urban core, those unseen costs. And then if you put them in there, you might wind up having something else going wrong. And then how does the community embrace? I think one of the probably shining stars and quietest has kept one of the most successful projects east of Truce is probably going to be Beacon Hills and those properties over there, and the HUD money that was used to prepare the land. Now those lots are selling for $300,000 or $400,000 a piece. So it can be done. You just have to get the right investment to begin with.
And you have to be, Eric, I think you'd agree, patient. I mean, the Beacon Hill project is 20, 25, 30 years. It takes a long, long time to make these very difficult projects work. And if there's one thing Kansas City, and understandably so, Kansas City lacks on the east side is some patience. But you know, once you sort of, you know, find investors who are willing to wait and work hard, sometimes it can work on that in that part of the city. And Beacon Hill is a good example of that.
You can't separate economic development on Kansas City's east side from concern over crime. This week, more tragedy there.
Why would you shoot a house up? That's to me, that's a monster. It has no value for life.
2 boys, one 8, the other 9, killed after someone fires into their home near 58th Street in College. A teenage girl also wounded in that attack. The boys' deaths, the 66th and 67th homicides of the year in the city. It's been 7 years since the homicide rate tracked this high at this point in the year. Dave, you reported on the story with a line. Kansas City leaders expressed shock and outrage, but beyond the mayor and community leaders, is there really broad shock and outrage about this?
Well, there was shock in the neighborhood, I must say. I mean, I had a chance to chat with several people who live in and around that part of the city, and they all are extraordinarily frustrated that there doesn't seem to be a solution to the tragic circumstances of a shooting like this. I think violent crime in some neighborhoods on the east side is more common than it should be, but the shooting of 2 children in their beds at 1:30 in the morning shocked virtually everyone I talked to around 57th, 58th and College, in addition to the mayor and some of the other people who are working on crime. But I think the larger point of your question is also valid, which is there did seem to be a little bit of sort of same old after this story first broke, and that would be a tragedy of a different order. This was such a sad story, and for Kansas City to quickly forget how these 2 young boys were killed would be just a horrific thing. We've had 4 juveniles killed in the last 6 months in Kansas City, all through gun violence. Breathtaking.
As we were putting the show together, one staffer of KCPT who knew all the intimate details of Schlitterbahn said they'd never even heard of the story, that the murders had even taken place, Eric.
And you know, it kind of flew under the radar until yesterday and the day before. It was a mention of it, but it was not the same zeal that was with the little straw boy. And you know, that's a tragic situation. It's a rare situation, but it's gotten to the point where violent crime in the urban core is an everyday thing, and maybe people are just immune to it because it's, oh well, there's another shooting over there, some more people have gotten killed. I think we saw something that had more media attention was the guy that was driving down 71 fixing an air conditioner and his car got shot up. We got more attention than with that when it first happened than the tragic thing of the 2 little boys getting killed.
I just want to very quickly, you know, the story of the 2 young boys who were killed was on page 1 of the Sunday newspaper. It led all the newscasts. It isn't as if it was ignored or not paid attention to by mass media. The way we disseminate news has changed so dramatically, Nick, and that may be part of it. But the other part of it is, I think, valid that somehow it has become at least a numbing acceptance of some of these tragic stories. And in that sense, that's just not a good thing in Kansas City.
Do we have a sense, though, you know, the mayor talks about the need to address this issue. We have a police chief who's been commended for working with the community in a much better way. But we have a task force going on right now that's well into its work about trying to solve issues of crime in this community. But do we have any sense that they're making headway in this area, Eric?
Absolutely not. And they missed the last meeting that they were supposed to have for some electrical problems at the health department. But while they're meeting, I think I've tallied it up at 72 homicides since they first came into play in November of last year till today. And there never was a sense of urgency. From their very first meeting when they started in January, 1 Tuesday a month. You've had 9 meetings, 10 meetings so far, and there's not a plan. What's the plan? And you have all this data that all these other task forces have done, and it doesn't seem like anybody's addressing or trying to put any of that stuff into play that was feasible. Resources in certain zip code areas. And, you know, let's face it, with the Second Amendment conversation, whenever you're talking about gun control or doing something that's, oh, I need my right to carry guns. And I think until we have some funerals in some other areas in town, I think that this would just be something that's considered an urban core black community problem when it's something that affects the entire city.
David?
Well, and that was one of the, speaking of the gun rights, I mean, that was one of the discussions that came out of Sandy Hook, is that even after that atrocity, gun laws don't change. So the point that, you know, if it happened in a different part of town, would we see more action? I'm not so sure that's the case. You know, so often we just put, when something like this happens, we put all of it on law enforcement and the mayors to fix it for us. Well, there's only so much they can do. It takes a lot more than that.
Yeah, but the difference with Sandy Hook is very tragic, but that was a rare one-time situation with that, where in the urban core, this is almost every day.
I think my point is it didn't lead to much policy change.
Right.
It certainly got more attention.
Well, let's talk about policy change on another issue, which was the top story we looked at last week. Kansas Governor Sam Brownback says he's open to new regulations on amusement parks and water rides. That after last week's tragedy at Schlitterbahn, which took the life of the 10-year-old son of a state lawmaker from Johnson County. The state's current law provides little government oversight of amusement rides. Brownback, who attended the funeral of Caleb Schwab over the weekend, also had ridden the Verrückt ride with his son when the park first opened. But what kind of regulation would lawmakers even consider? Steve?
I don't think they fully fleshed that out. I mean, I think at a minimum it would require some, you know, bringing in somebody outside of, you know, Schlitterbahn, to give an evaluation of whether these rides are effective, whether they're safe. I mean, in the reporting that we've done over the last week, the picture that's starting to emerge is you have people who do inspections to make sure all the rivets on the steel structures are tight. You have people who make sure the concrete footings are in place. There doesn't seem to be, we haven't found yet, anybody who really comes in and looks at the slide and says, is this thing going to bring people from the top to the bottom safely? They can walk up the stairs safely because we've inspected those stair structures. But whether the idea itself is good or not, it doesn't appear that anybody really steps in through this whole process and looks at that and says, yeah, this thing was probably a good idea, or perhaps says, no, this thing's a bad idea and you should reconfigure it.
And you know, it seems like it was a bad idea from the onset, because at first when they were testing it before the park even opened, or they even opened the ride, there were a ton of problems with it. So I'm trying to figure out, at what point do you say, you know, this is a bad design. I think they said they spent $1 million redesigning it, and they still had problems with it. So I don't know if a daily inspection would have helped any of the things that they knew was a problem from the beginning.
I want to go into some specific aspects of this in just a moment, but can you regulate away every tragedy? I mean, this week the Wichita Eagle newspaper reports on lax regulation of Kansas daycare centers. 45 children have died in Kansas daycare facilities since 2007, and according to their report, more than half of those were in licensed daycare facilities. 47,000 children in home-based daycare that is so loosely regulated by the state of Kansas. The Eagle reports that operators don't need to be insured. They don't even need to report injuries to a child unless it results in death. So don't we need to take a step back and look at what the real risk is in any specific industry? The amusement park industry insists they're one of the safest forms of entertainment in America, Dave.
Right, although when you have a catastrophic failure like you did at Schlitterbahn, it obviously gets a lot of attention and a lot of public attention. But there is a similarity between the daycare story and the amusement park story, Nick, and it is this. Americans assume somehow that there is a vague regulatory structure that protects them pretty much from the time they get up in the morning until the time they go to bed. And they're used to it because our medicines are tested for efficacy and safety, and there are regulations in, you know, at the workplace through the Occupational Safety and Health Administration. But by and large, there's much less regulation of the way we live our lives than a lot of people know. I'm sure the Schwab family and others who went to Schlitterbahn assumed that someone had made sure that that ride was safe. And that is a bad assumption. And it is a bad assumption for parents to think that somehow there's this amorphous state organization that watches over daycares. There are some regulations that apply and some inspections, but it is not a daily occurrence. So there is a lot of buyer beware in our lives that I think people don't get. And as a political issue, it may become more important in the weeks and months ahead in that regard.
As we zero in further on this Schlitterbahn incident from last week, in another news development on that, Kansas City, Kansas police say the raft that the 10-year-old traveled in was not underweight and did not violate the ride's requirements. KC police say the combined weight of the 10-year-old and the 2 women on the raft with him was within the ride's limits of 400 to 550 pounds. But Steve, you report this week while the weight may have met ride requirements, how the weight distributed is now a point of contention. Why?
Right, so Caleb Schwab was 73 pounds. The passenger who rode behind him was 197 pounds, according to the police, and then the passenger in the back was 275 pounds. So the thinking is when you have a high velocity ride that drops down 17 feet, or 17 stories rather, and I would point out that that's taller than the Statue of Liberty, and then comes up a 50-foot ramp. If you have the weight backloaded so much, it's reasonable to suspect that you're going to have a raft where the nose comes up, where it can come airborne, and we've heard reports from several people who say that their rides went airborne as well. And can that put passengers in contact with this netting that they put over, which is supported by steel beams? That's kind of the question that's being examined, and the protocol of backloading the weight on a high velocity ride. We talked to some experts yesterday in a story that was published this morning. They all seem to suggest that it wasn't a very good idea.
Okay, you're talking about the netting. There seems to be a lot of backpedaling going on over who was responsible for that at the water park. This was a last-minute safety feature that has now become a focus of investigators. There seems to be a dispute over who insisted on it. Early reporting suggesting Wyandotte County officials demanded the netting, but now they deny that. Firstly, how much of the investigation is centered on that, and has your reporting been able to determine who actually called for it?
Well, no. So as you point out, I had 2 separate phone calls early last week with unified governments where they offered that the idea that they had called for the netting and that they had raised the issue of putting netting over it. And then as the week went on, I wanted to know, well, whose decision within unified government was that? Who designed it? Was it just left up to Schlitterbahn, or did unified government have an idea of how it should be designed? And that eventually resulted in an email retracting their statement saying, no, we actually didn't have anything to do with it. I think there's going to be a team of attorneys and investigators looking into whose decision that was.
Would that put Wyandotte County taxpayers on the hook?
No. I mean, Steve may have a different sense of this, but I don't think taxpayers face some sort of legal exposure unless something comes to light that we're not quite aware of yet. Again, I think what the stories so far have illustrated, that this may not have been an operational problem so much as a design problem. Now, the operation may have contributed to the tragedy based on what the design implied. I mean, if you design a ride and then operate it with the heaviest weight in the back of a raft and it hydroplanes, the mixture of operation versus design. It does not seem to be, however, a loose bolt, a broken strap, some sort of, now again, that reporting could change, but at this point, it's much more about design and to some degree operation, and that implies the state of Kansas as well as the unified government,
David.
it seems to me.
The story raises to me the notion that maybe, and there's a senator in Massachusetts who's explored this idea of trying to have some kind of federal regulation of these rides. Because as I read the story in the Star, I was somewhat sympathetic to county and state officials who are wrestling with this, because who at that level has an expertise in 168-foot water slides to go out there and certify its safety? So it almost seems to be, I wonder if it's maybe something where there's some kind of industry-funded regulation, like the FDA would maybe be the model.
When I reported in the 90s on a fatality at Worlds of Fun on a roller coaster, and what the industry will tell you is that they're regulated by their insurers, that their insurers will not provide coverage for rides unless they're sure they're safe and designed well. That is a self-regulating mechanism that doesn't always work. One of the great questions going forward is whether anyone will now insure anyone on that ride and whether it ever opens again.
Okay, well, last week, some of the Metro's bigger districts, like Blue Valley, headed back to school. Now every area school kid is back in the classroom. In Kansas City, Missouri, there's a new superintendent in charge, Mark Bedell, finding out what it's like to lead a large urban district for the first time in his professional career. As we start this new school year on both sides of state line, complete this sentence: the biggest issue facing schools is blank, David Martin.
Administrative competence for the Kansas City public schools. They got off to kind of a rocky start with children not being picked up at bus stops when parents and children thought they should be arriving. So right off the bat, I think they're dealing with questions of just basic competence.
Dave.
Enrollment. I think that Kansas City, Missouri schools need to work on higher enrollments, and then on the Kansas side, of course, financing, which remains a massive issue for all the districts, and how taxpayers pay for it and what the legislature does.
Eric.
Community support for all the school districts, whether the parents, the community gets behind them, rallies behind them, supports them. The communication between the district and the parents has to be A1.
What did you think of the bus issue that they were facing in Kansas City, Missouri that David Martin mentioned? I mean, was that different than we've seen in the past?
My phone was ringing off the hook.
Okay.
They can't even get my kid to school. Now they want me to support what they're doing. That's a mess. And I don't think there was any way they could have foresaw that coming.
Steve Alcroft.
On the Kansas side, I will be intrigued to see whether this apparent new wave of either moderates or possibly a few Democrats who will be taking seats in the legislature next year will be able to make much difference in the glide path that funding for K-12 education has had. If that changing dynamic in the legislature has any effect, that's the thing I'm keeping my eye out for the school year.
And that's our Week in Review. I'm Nick Haynes. From all of us here at KCPT, thanks for spending part of your weekend with us.